Hey everybody, hope you're doing well and welcome to the video. Today I wanted to talk about units that I skipped but I actually really wanted. This is mostly for entertainment purposes, but I also wanted to give a little bit of insight into how I sort of plan things out. I know I kind of do this in the reverse, but I'm kind of looking back now and thinking about units that I skipped. Some people do see that I have a lot of Vizier saved up a lot of the time, but it's usually because I decide to, who I'm going to pick and actually pull for. Ever since we had the guaranteed pulls, I kind of decided, you know what, I'm not going to do any YOLO pulls. I'm not going to pull on any VCs that I don't need. I'm just going to pull on what I need. So let's just get into it. So the first unit is actually Black Rose Helena. So she's one that we kind of knew was going to be the meta by looking at the Japanese side, but unfortunately for me, if we look at the context, we had just come off of Final Fantasy X and then near back to back. I had spent most of my Vizier in Final Fantasy X and I actually wasn't really ready for King Mont, so I did what I could to get ready for King Mont and I really wanted him. And I ended up going to pretty much to pity to get him, so I couldn't really have a guaranteed Helena, so I kind of just decided to skip. I was thinking of doing some YOLO pulls, I just didn't end up doing it, and so I was kind of looking forward to the stuff on the right here, Valentine Salir and Warrior of Light. They're kind of some personal choices for me. I kind of decided that I wanted them. Salir ended up becoming free, or not free, but standard pool, so I kind of didn't end up going like all the way to pity for her, which was good, but I did end up pulling Warrior of Light, who I was more focused on and willing to go to pity for. I ended up pulling him a little bit earlier than I expected, so that ended up working out pretty decently for me, and I got to Lear much later. Okay, so next unit on the list is actually Charlotte. I don't necessarily need another tank at this point because I had King Mont. But Charlotte is obviously a really cool unit and a really cool design, and of course I knew her from FFBE, so she was someone that I wanted, but there's just so many other factors that factored in that I just ended up not pulling her. It just didn't feel like it was the right choice to pull for her. Just for some context, it was a little bit after Warrior of Light and more is another one, but I didn't really necessarily want her that badly. But looking forward, she came right before summer. I'm not sure if we knew summer was coming at that point, but we definitely knew Final Fantasy VII was coming at that point. So she was just kind of in a weird spot, and kind of had to skip her to sort of get ready for Final Fantasy VII. Okay, so next up is the new summer units. So I did end up pulling for Summer Lilith, but I also wanted these units. These units were kind of completely unexpected for me, I guess. These specific units like Kilfei and El Sorel. I do think I wanted Kilfei a little bit more than El Sorel, and El Sorel was kind of like, okay, is she coming, is she not, because they kind of held her off for like another 2 or 3 weeks after Kilfei. And I also wasn't really in love with this design here of El Sorel, although she is a really good unit and her 3D model does look really good. So to put that in context, she basically came between the first summer unit and Final Fantasy VII. So, knowing that Final Fantasy VII was coming, that's what I was ready for. That's what I really wanted. So I was just like, you know what? These units are cool and everything, but I'm going to skip. Okay, so next up is Glaciella Regalia, or Fire Glaciella, whatever you want to call her. Glaciella, I kind of wasn't even thinking of Glaciella because I thought she would be like a Japanese exclusive or they might do something different, but she literally came out when she was supposed to on the schedule. I somehow still wasn't expecting that. So I just wasn't really ready to pull for her. I was just more focused on Final Fantasy VII. And if we kind of look at the context, she literally came in the week before between Cloud and Tifa, and then Barrett and Aerith, and then afterwards Lara Croft had been already announced, I believe. So it was just like bad timing, and I didn't end up pulling for her. I do kind of regret not getting her at the beginning because I'm trying to focus on fire units. So I want to have like a good fire account. So right now I'm kind of still building her up. She's still, LB2 or something. So I kind of regret that a little bit, but obviously it was very hard at that time. Okay, so next up is Little Leela, Halloween Little Leela. I've already talked about this. I would have definitely pulled for her. It's just the banner was just like not good. So just to give a little bit of context, she came right after Starlight Elena, which I pulled for. Pretty much had to go to pity. And she was also on the same banner as Halloween Frederica. So personally, Frederica's not one of my favorite units. She's okay, I like her, but she's just not a unit that I'm gonna pull hard for. So if it was like Rairu and Little Leela, you get one and then you could pity the other, I probably would have done that. But since you had to get Frederica at the max pity and then use the medals for Halloween Little Leela, that was really the only way, the only good way to pull her. I was just like, man, that's just not a good deal for me. So kind of decided not to do that. And then just for a little bit more context, Final Fantasy 15 was coming up and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna spend shards on Prompto, so I would rather do that than kind of do this crappy banner. So I just ended up skipping. Alright, so next up is Oberon, and just for context, he literally came out like right after the Halloween units. So I had already pulled for Elena, so I was kind of like, you know what, I don't know if I can afford to pull for Oberon. And then like I really, for whatever reason, I like building the free units, so I wanted to build, I was focused on Prompto. And then I kind of knew that Final Fantasy 4 and Christmas was sort of on the radar. I wanted to pull for the older Christmas units, so that's represented by Mashari here. I just ended up doing the 6,000 paid pull, and I got Mashari, so I guess that kind of worked out. But I had other things that I was kind of looking forward to. Alright, so next up is actually Golbez himself. So it's funny because I was looking forward to him, but if we put it in context, he came out right after Ibarra. And so at the beginning of Final Fantasy IV, I was kind of feeling like, man, I'm kind of tired of building units, and I was kind of wondering what am I doing here? Like, why am I building so many units at once? And so I kind of took a look at Golbez and said, you know what? He's very similar to Ibarra, and he's basically just, not that he's exactly the dark type version of her, but he's very similar to a dark type version of her. And then I'm also currently looking forward to other fire units because, as I said, I want to make my fire account as strong as possible. So looking at Terra, she's actually very similar to both Ibarra and Golbez. So I really don't need three of the same unit, basically, of different elements. So, I still have the urge to pull for Golbez just for nostalgia's sake, but chances are if I do pull, I'm probably just going to do, 3 steps to the 9th step or something like that and call it a day. If I don't pull him, I don't pull him. I'm also kind of interested in Rosa, but I kind of have the same feeling towards her where if I pull her, I pull her, and that's pretty much what that's going to be. Alright, so next up, I just wanted to talk about the units that I skipped and didn't necessarily want. And it's for different reasons. So for the top 2, essentially, I never really played Nier, and I've never really made it that far in Final Fantasy 15. So I have like no attachment to either one of Arnea or 2B. Not that I don't think they're cool or anything like that. They do seem pretty cool. I just don't have that nostalgic attachment to either one of them. So it made it a little bit easier for me to skip. And so for the next 3, it's kind of the same thing. I didn't really have any attachment to any of these units. Didn't end up pulling Mor or Luartha right away. And I kind of don't really like Luartha in the story, so it just made it a little bit easier for me to skip. On top of that, for whatever reason, I feel like they're giving Wind a lot of resources, and my Wind account is not super great. It's not something that I want to focus on, so it made it easier to skip 4 out of 7 here, so hey, if they want to make it easy for me to skip, go right ahead. Okay, and the last row for June, she is really cool. She does give me, you know, Agrius vibes. Basically, she's just a tanky unit. That's a really cool design. But again, she's one of the wind, and I don't really, you know, for wind, I'm not really focused on wind for my account. I mean, I'll take them if I can get them in one pull or something like that, but you know, I'm not really focused on that. And more I kind of just have here because I kind of saw her there. I sort of did want her, but like not really enough to actually push past the fact that she's a standard pool unit. So I didn't really decide to pull for her. So currently right now I'm kind of just looking to the fire sort of stuff, fire support in the future. Of course I'm looking forward to Terra and Setcha. However, there is one other fire support thing that we didn't really get that we were supposed to get around the launch of Jaden, and that would be the Keepers of the Crystals. I totally regret not pulling this. I think I did have the resources to pull it the first time it ran. However, I don't know what I was saving for at the time. I do remember pulling like one step or two, but I just didn't get it, so I just kind of stopped. But I super regret it because it's like one of the fire cards that you really need in this game. Really the only fire support there is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I always wonder why. I don't wonder why, but I kind of feel like a lot of times people post pull videos and it's just all about hype. Nobody really talks about why they skip. You know, some people do actually. I think mostly for VCs. But I kind of just wanted to talk about what I skipped, and I didn't really want to just like hate on a unit necessarily. So like I didn't want to hate on More the Merrier. I'm just like really neutral about her, and I just I'm not gonna pull. So I just didn't want to hate and make like a specific video for every one of these units. So I kind of just ended up putting it all together in one video. I hope that was at least a little bit entertaining, and I hope that it gave you a little bit of insight into how I think. But that's pretty much it for me. I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.